So welcome back to everyone. And we have this morning we wanted to give you, first of all, a very brief introduction, then provide an institutional support to let you see how locally a government is interested to what we are doing, and at the same time to show that officially the European Commission is very much engaged in our project. Then we wanted also to let you feel the importance outside of the pure banking sphere. So to see how important it is for consumer and where are the opportunities in a broad sense. Now, after the coffee break, we would like to do two things. First of all, explaining a bit better what is the pilot phase. Try to understand also together with you what are the expectations of the different stakeholders. And I will also try to highlight the complexity of this operation, because what we are doing is all nice, is all fantastic, but it's also all very difficult. And finding simplicity in a very difficult environment is the challenge, because to build our 500, we have to be very simple in our approach, because otherwise, I mean, we are creating extra cost, and we are killing actually the advantage for the end user, which is the consumer at the end of the story. I have here on stage, we have selected very carefully geographically the representation here, and also from a stakeholder point of view, because with the four persons on stage, they will help us in understanding the different perspective into the market and also the different challenges that we have to face. I would like maybe, before arriving to the banks, who are the key players in this game, I would like to walk together with you what we have done in the last years, because today is an arrival point of a long journey. It was very difficult, first of all, to engage all the stakeholders. We came to look for all of you, and also there was a lot of preparation in a network of energy efficiency experts, valuers, but not only. We discussed with companies like Knauf, Velux, and others to understand what are the needs of the market. Maybe, Steven, I would like to start with you. I mean, we start this journey together with a lot of discussions. Let me see if it's working, because I mean... Say something? No. I will scream and you'll use that one. It's not working. So I would like to just if you can share with you, what are the challenges on putting people together, understanding what are the key energy parameters can be used. We have a dilemma, using one parameters or adapting this to different situations. I mean, where we can find a middle way?
Thanks, Luca. I think one of the key challenges here is that that we have different worlds colliding, and not only actual different languages, but in terms of our technical backgrounds, you know, we speak different languages, and that's something that I've really come to understand over the project. The way we in the energy efficiency world or the building sector world think and talk about these issues is very different to how somebody coming from the financial sector thinks and talks about them. And so that I think has been one of the really key challenges that we've had to address. And I think we've done that as a consortium. We've learned to love each other. I think we get on really well, and I think that's been a really positive start. That there's a great sense of team, which I don't think was something we could have, you know, assumed would be the case. But now we're expanding the network, aren't we? We're bringing a whole new group of people into the team, and so it's a whole new group of people that need to try and learn each other's languages. And so that's something that we, in the journey that we've been on, have been trying to sort of take our. It's a journey we're trying to take our network on. We have a network of green building councils across Europe, who represent around 4,000 organisations. Who this energy efficiency and sustainability and green building is their daily bread. So for us, it's important to help them to learn to speak your language and vice versa. And I think that's That's been definitely one of the key challenges we've had to grapple with.
Just to stress the importance of the work that they are doing. A bank cannot enter in production if they don't have a certification of how green is the house. Bankers can do a lot of things, but they cannot be engineers, they cannot be experts. And so we need to simplify the production line by having a simple entry point. Because when I go to the bank, I should have a patent of a potential green borrow. And this has to be done outside of the banking sector. We are already very lucky. I think the Commission has done a fantastic instrument, the EPC, which is giving some critical information which are already available in every single country of the Union. We can discuss, we can say it's not comparable, it's not done in the same way. Yes, but also houses are done in different ways. Europeans are different. So at the same time, so we have to also be very practical, start from some starting point. And I think the EPC is one of the pillars of this information because we have also to split the task in the value chain. I mean, not everything can be done by the bank. I will arrive to you later on, so, but I will tell the problems, some of the problems beforehand. And also the work that Stephen is doing, so saying what level of green you have in your house should be captured by other stakeholders. Extremely important for banks is the valuer. Because the translation of the energy efficiency in money, that's it. It's the reason why the bank is entering the game. Again, the banks are not the Red Cross, as I said several times. There is a need of getting a gain for the borrower, the energy efficiency, the valuer, and the bank. Zolt, I mean, we had very intense discussion in your wall. I mean, there is a different views. I mean, there is a correlation, there is no correlation. I mean, how we can improve this thing. What you have done, your list in our guidelines that all of you have in hands, I think was a fantastic solution to this kind of traffic-like simple approach. Can you elaborate where you come from and the value of what you put in the guidelines?
Sure. Thank you, Luca. Let me start with the beginning. We have carried out market sentiment survey very recently. We have analyzed responses from valuers to a survey taking place between 2006 and 2007 as part of a training program available online on our website. And interestingly, this analysis shows some good news, is that certainly on the agenda of the valuation clients, be that investors, lenders, owners, pension funds, the issue of sustainability and all the related risks in terms of energy efficiency, climate change resilience is getting higher on the agenda. So what the valuers are providing us in terms of feedback is that this issue is getting increasingly more important. And the second thing that we have looked at was that that's fine, but to what extent the valuers are in fact instructed explicitly to consider and to comment on these energy efficiency related risks. And here again we see probably an increasing tendency and the picture across the built environment stakeholders and the finance world is quite diverse, but lenders are in fact quite high. What I want to say is that mortgage banks are already, some of them are already instructing valuers to consider energy efficiency related risks. And the other side of this is that if valuations are done according to professional body standards, these valuations are already implicitly factoring in, they should factor in any criteria, any risk which can have an impact on market value, even on the long-term value. So it's very important in that sense that there is a correlation between the bank as well as the valuer. There is a good collaboration. So what we tried to focus on was to develop very basic, a very minimum. You said simplicity is a key word here. We're trying to develop a very simple approach which could work with already existing practices. Because so far, this was really, as you said, Luca, was really a theoretical exercise. Everything that we have developed here was really like the blueprint for green mortgages is very much was a theoretical discussion until this point in time. So therefore, what we are proposing now here to banks is to have a look of what we are suggesting in terms of additional risk assessment expected from the valuers and match that according to their own business strategies, the market penetration they have, the legal requirements in their country where they are operating, and therefore tailor their valuation instructions in such a way to use some of the indicators which they think they best fit their green mortgage products. So what we have designed is a very simple traffic light system. It's not aimed to be a thorough risk assessment matrix, but it's something that helps, on one hand, the decision-making of the valuer, how it arrives at the value assessment, but also it helps the bank department then who is responsible, who is reading the valuation report, who is interpreting the valuation report. So when we are going to roll out this and when we are going to raise awareness and improve the skill set of the valuers, it's also very important that the banks will have a look on this and the guidance that we are going to develop, because I think the departments within the banks which are going to read and use and interpret the valuation report, they need to learn also about this. So for them to be able to best use, but also to challenge some of the valuers or some of the valuation reports.
Just to summarize, what is this document you found on your chair? Well, when we started this idea of the green mortgage, there was a need clearly to define what is a green mortgage. So most of you actually ask us, yeah, but what do you mean with a green mortgage? So we try to work in the EMF consortium in providing the concept of the energy efficiency mortgage. It was very difficult. So what we have done for a couple of years, we went around Europe and we spoke with banks mainly, with other providers, and we tried to make up our ideas, having in mind that the energy efficiency mortgage should provide a bit more money to the borrower, should combine money coming from the banks with the public grant or public subsidies, should actually invite the borrower to use this money only for energy efficiency investment. We should have an audit, and at the end of the game, the mortgage should be cheaper and it should be linked to the energy consumption. So that was the basic idea. It's very aspirational. It's very much a dreamer story. What we have done is that we put down, together with experts, these ideas in a first document. And then in February, we said, okay, we were all convinced about our bullshit, let's say, because it was something that we have created a bunch of dreamer, lobbyists or specialists, and no one had never tested a real business line. So we said, let's test it. Actually, this document is composed by 3 parts. There is a banking section, there is an energy efficiency section, and then a valuer section. And we have split the work in these 3 groups. And then we have tested. So we opened a consultation online, which was open, we said for 1 month, actually was open for a couple of months. And actually, thank you, because we receive a lot of feedback. We change things, and we try to adapt these kind of guidelines to what you told us. And then we thought maybe a consultation online is not enough. And all 3 organizations have organized a lot of roundtables around Europe, where we went down on the ground to speak with people and understand if this was making sense. We are not yet convinced that this makes sense. We are not yet 100% convinced. So what we are doing, now the dreamer phase is a bit over, and now we have to transform this in an operational roadmap. So what does it mean, pilot phase? In the pilot phase, it means that we have asked a group of banks to be part of this game, to be engaged and to think about potential solutions. We are not asking them to commit to a green product. No, we want their brain. We want to use their capacity to find an operational solution. This operational solution should be different in every single country. but at the same time should have some common characteristic which will allow a common investor base approach in the future. So together with this common approach, we should also develop a common infrastructure that has to be designed and think. And we ask also a second consortium, EDAP, to speak with these banks and to try to see where are the problems, where are the solutions. So that's the idea. So we trap these 37 banks. Actually, there are a lot of ghosts. We have 37, and there are also a lot of banks thinking of being on board and being a bit shy. I mean, you have to. Normally, the bigger the bank it is, the shyer it is. There is a correlation. But I mean, so in the press release that we just sent out, I mean, we say that we cover 45%. In our secret calculation, we are well above 50%. And if we consider the Eurozone, it's around 65% of the mortgage outstanding. So there is a huge capacity of changing things. Now, as I said, we are testing, we are giving these guidelines to the banks, and we asked yesterday actually to split the banks in a deep analysis of this kind of guidelines and trying to identify where are the problems and where are the operational solutions. So we have invited all the banks to work during their holidays, of course, for free, and come back to Venice at the end of September with a list of problems sector by sector. So we split it in origination, marketing, funding, investor relations, partnership with other companies. I mean, we have seen the utilities, and propose where are the common problems. Not thousands of problems. We want to have 3 problems per section. Because in September, what we would like to do is that to use the other part of the pilot phase, the advisory council, where we have all these brave institutions who have decided to be part of the game, and they will receive the list of problems. And then they will try to think internally in their institution how they can help banks to get operational. Because I'm not sure that the problems that we see today are actually the blocking problems. Because I think the consumer element is the most important driver. And also, the mentality is changing over time. So, I mean, we have to do. So that's the commitment that we are asking. We are not asking the moon. We are asking to be part of this game and to analyze. After September, what I would like to see in the pilot is that, first of all, our members of EDAP will try to speak with these banks and try to understand what they need from an IT point of view or what could be a solution based on already existing database. I mean, we should not reinvent something that doesn't exist. They should have a kind of cost-efficient solution. We should reduce cost in the value chain. And then maybe some of the banks that took part in this discussion can really design a roadmap and design a way how they can become operational. In that case, we will trap the advisory council, because if a bank decides to go live, the advisory council should be able to protect them. To protect them, what does it mean? I see that they could help in designing the business line in an intelligent way, understand where maybe some of these institutions can help in removing bottlenecks, energy audit, other guarantee for the works done. Those are all problematic elements that have to be guaranteed somehow. And at the end of the day, these institutions are also very big investors. So they could be buying whatever covered bond, whatever securitization can come out from this pipeline. So that's a bit the idea of the pilot phase, this mysterious element. There is yes, we are trapping you, it's true, but at the same time, we are not asking a legal commitment to deliver something which is impossible to commit at this point in time. It's a nice group of people. We will bring you in a very nice venue, like this one. We will bring you around Europe. We will let you understand how outstanding is Europe. It's amazing. The houses are different. I mean, we have the best cities that we could have, and we will bring you in the best cities. Next one will be also Munich, Claudia. We will be in September in Munich as well. So I mean, and that's the real purpose of this initiative, to let us understand that we can work together and work together towards a new journey. Now we have seen the expert. I would like to have a feeling of what is the bank's view. We have Miguel. Miguel is one of the bravest banks in Spain. I hope that. And a few years ago, or 3 years ago, was like Cassandra, going around and no one was believing him, what he was saying. Now he's a bit, he was right. Damn, he was really right. And also, you are also one of the first cover bond green label. So, and he is looking very much on the funding side. That was the challenge for your bank. And tell us, what was your idea? Why, you decided to become green?
Okay, thank you very much, Luca. I actually changed my mind. The trouble is that I am a liability guy, as you pointed out. I'm a guy on the funding side. And the trouble with banks is that we get confused, and we confuse assets with liabilities. For us, the cover bond is a liability. For me, a cover bond is a liability. For the investor, it's an asset. For me, a loan is an asset, but for a client, a loan is a liability, and a liability is not sexy, never. So I think you mentioned that before. I think that the key point for the EMAP to work is to think about the assets, not the liabilities. A green loan, a green mortgage is okay, but what we need is green projects. We need customers involved in greening the asset, and then we will find a liability which is proper enough to do that. So, and I think, this is not to say that banks don't have a role here. I have concrete hurdles and we can discuss afterwards, or probably in the pilot phase, things that we as banks and the liability side on the mortgage side can do. But my point of view, after discussing this with our guys, being a small bank means that we are very close contact with the guys in the business lines, in the credit risk department, in the branches. And we have participated in Spain with the Green Bond, Green Building Council in some with construction companies and with surveyors too. And my change of mind came from realizing the fact that we need demand, not just supply, but we need demand to work. And in order for demand to be there, I think that we need, this is an open discussion, of course, and that probably depends on how is your mindset on how things work in the world. But for me, I always use we discussed this in dinner yesterday, with the safety belt in the cars. You can convince people, but there are 3 ways of convincing people. Education, so convictions. You can die if there's a car crash. This is important. Then you can use incentives, either carrots or sticks. You can get a fine if you drive without the safety belt, or you can get a premium if you use it, or the car could be cheaper, I don't know. And then there is social habits, which is the end of the story. At the end of the day, you use the safety belt, yes, because it has become a habit. It's had nothing to do with the fine, nothing to do with the education, or you don't think about dying in your car. So I think that with this is a kind of behavioral finance. How you get people really to realize that the savings, which is with a proven, we discussed this before with Ion, it was a great insight. The case from an economical perspective is very clear. What we don't have is the willingness by customers to get embarked in such a project, greening the houses or renewing the houses. So coming to a conclusion, what I think we need is something for me this is a kind of market failure from an economic theory perspective. And I think we need I'm not so keen from a personal perspective on public intervention, but in this case, I think we need it. So I think we need some kind of education and conviction, that's right, but I think we need incentives. And incentives would be, I don't know, which is a mixture of carrots and sticks, but probably we need them. And if we get this, then we will get probably our clients involved, and then we will have, because banks, we are very clever when we see the business line, then we will create the green mortgage, no doubt. But I think both things have to be worked at the same time. So we can discuss afterwards some concrete hurdles I see on the liability side, which is very important, but I just wanted to mention beforehand that for me, the asset side, the incentive for the client to go for the green mortgage, I think it's key in this project if we want to make things work.
Miguel, as I said, is a pioneer in his market. Is really launching a new mentality in the funding market, and has been perceived like this by all the market participants. I would like to take another example of, we are very glad that we have the entire Belgian market on board. For me, of course, it was an honor of being based in Brussels, also because my mortgage is with them. So I hope that my next green mortgage will arrive very soon, I hope so. It's very important to see what Belgium has done, because it should be a benchmark for other countries. The National Association decided to intervene to analyze the project very carefully, and then they have contacted all the banks, and they have presented the project to them. It was easy. Our office is, I think, 200 meters from them, but anyhow, we are actually really try to understand the needs of the banks, and what they have done, they have started to contact other stakeholders, so the political world, and they work as a group. Everything sounds nice and fantastic, but when we enter in details, it's a challenge. And I would like to understand, like a big stakeholders, like BNP Paribas in Belgium, what are the reasons for being on board, and what are the reasons to say, anyhow, let's be very careful what we are doing, because anyhow there is a complexity to manage. Elizabeth, I don't know if you can help us in...
Yes. The reasons for being on board is that we strongly believe that there's really something to do about the climate change, about the energy efficiency, and that we want to actively participate in that. And our CEO in Paris also clearly confirmed that for him the Paris agreements are very valid. And so we are having for us in the bank a clear CSR, corporate social responsibility team and department who really works on that. So, that's our personal motivation. Complexity behind it, I think what I would also like to mention is that, you mentioned it, we all participate, all the big banks participate in this, and we had also a task force with Fabelfin, so the Belgian Banks Association, who really looked at these guidelines in detail. So we really went guideline per guideline to see from a customer perspective, is this interesting? From a bank's perspective, is this interesting? And so what would we suggest? What do we miss in order to make this happen? Because there might be a very nice model, but if no consumer is interested, it won't work. We don't even have to think about funding if there's no loans sold. So this is really, really important. And there are a few suggestions which we did in terms of the process, is that we have to keep things as simple as possible for the customer. This means that, okay, he will have to pay to have his house valued, to have his have an energy assessment done, and then, okay, he have to manage all the renovation works, make sure then that this is reassessed, and then he will get the conditions. And we should really try looking into making this more simple and say, okay, for example, you will have the house valued. Why can't you do the two in the same time? Why can't you look at the value of the house and the energy assessment? And this way, you also link automatically the value to the energy label of the house. This is very important. As in the execution of the works, it is difficult for banks to judge whether or not the K levels are appropriate. We are not the experts. We are into banking. So there should be indeed help from the government or a neutral instance that can really say, okay, these are subcontractors that can be used, that are delivering proper work, maybe certification, those type of ideas. And then another point we mentioned is we are contacting the local governments to see how we can create awareness in the market, and also how we can incentivize this.
I think Elizabeth really took the idea of the pilot phase, because I mean, what we realize is that all the problems are actually fake problems, in the sense that if there is a real consumer demand, the market can fix it. Because I'm a strong believer in the market, otherwise I would not have done this job. But I mean, I think that if there is a request from the market participant will find a solution, which will evolve. You remember my example of the T model. Before 11 cars in 1 month, and then after 90 minutes, there was a car coming out. So the market can really get speed in the process. So the real problem, the only real problem, is consumer demand. And this cannot be fixed by any of us alone. This is not for Knauf, it's not for Velux, it's not for... Can be fixed only if we build a story together. If when we go back home, everyone is convinced that energy efficiency is important. And let's be honest, this is happening. Just to take the example of my neighborhood in Brussels. I see crazy prices for houses in my neighborhood and houses that are unsold for 1 year. What does it mean when a house is unsold for 1 year? That the price is not the right price. There is a misunderstanding of the price. And when I went to ask the price, they said, the buyer told me, but I mean, it's not what the EPC is telling me. So I mean, and what happened? That in our little Truman Show, the neighborhood in Brussels for Europeans, the houses are there with a crazy price, but with a terrible energy condition. And this is a problem because the house is not liquid. You see this, and this has an impact also on the house pricing. And you see, it's 1 year that the houses are there. And it's already happening. I'm pretty sure that you can check this also in your neighborhood. And it's pretty similar, because the seller is not factoring in energy efficiency, the buyer is. And so there is a gap between the two things. So this is already happening. So maybe, I think Miguel raised a very important point, support. Support should not be understood as a kind of money or things. I mean, there are different ways where the institutions, they could support this initiative. Well, if the real problem, for example, is demand, we should maybe organize an institutional marketing campaign, let people understand, like the Commission is already doing, but this should be supported at the national level. So people should really understand that things are changing. I think it's also a legal obligation to a country to explain to landlord that things have to be improved. Also because we played a bit with numbers. The majority of the wealth of the European families is in the properties. So if you don't do this, and if there is a big change in the market, you are obliging a loss in every single family in the continent, in the country. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So we are proposing a solution which is much bigger than the simple mortgage market solution. It's really entering in the pocket of every single family. So this is, I think, the challenge that we have. The real bottleneck, the only problem is consumer demand. And we have to figure out, working together, how we can fix it. So we invite really the ones that are already well, they are not yet in the pilot phase, to come. If they have a solution, they should come and to speak to us. Because maybe we have solutions that we don't see nowadays.
Yeah, just respond to that point. I think the co-benefits is what we talk about. The co-benefits of energy efficiency are something that we as an industry are really, for many years now have really started to grapple with. And I think that's something that where we can help, in terms of communicating in a way that is compelling to the homeowner, that energy costs is not a huge consideration for most people, certainly not when they're buying a house, but actually understanding, what drives people and how the benefits of a comfortable home, a home that is high quality, or all of those co-benefits of energy efficiency are something that, I think will drive demand, and if you speak to people like Marco, our 4,000 members across Europe who engage with this, they understand that and they can help bring that message. So I think we've heard that partnerships are really key. I think that's something I'd really like to underscore. Partnerships is going to be the thing that will make this pilot work. And so our Green Building Councils, our members are there to help you, and whether it's on understanding demand, whether it's on the technical, making this work, that's something I'd really like to underscore.
Of course, this panel was not prepared, and we are taking this as a very much a spontaneous reaction, because I think that is the best way to do it. There are two other questions I would like to raise to the panel before opening the audience. I would like to ask all the participants what are their expectations on this pilot. Because we presented this pilot, but I would like to understand from the four ladies and gentlemen on the panel, what are their expectations, what they would like to see from this. And then the second question, which will be done in the second round, is what you can offer to the pilot. What you can be doing, how you can contribute to this pilot. I will start maybe just to save a bit the banks on this side.
Expectations. I think I'm sort of repeating myself here, but I think the partnerships piece is really something that we we're convinced is vital, and so that would be something that I really hope we start to see over these next few months is banks working with the organisations who can give them the expertise they need. We've seen where there has been success in energy efficiency finance. One of the keys to that is bringing in technical expertise. We had somebody from EBRD speak, and that that when they do initiatives, that technical expertise coming alongside the bank, whether it's the energy efficiency or it's the financing, but actually bringing partnering with banks is really key to success. So I think that would be my expectation, my sort of call to action would be, use the opportunity that this consortium provides, the access that you have to a huge network of valuers who really understand all these issues, a network of energy efficiency and green building experts who understand this, and of course on the banking side, I'll leave that to Luca, but that's my expectation.
Stephen, thank you. I can only agree with what you have said, and the point was raised about the client demand, customer demand, and we realized that what we are building here it poses, at least the beginning, increased administrative costs. We had the role play. It was again very impromptu theater yesterday, trying to enact how these green mortgages could actually happen in a real world situation. And I think that was already quite telling about saying exactly how many different cogs are in this chain. And these all need to work together in a seamless way. And we also need to understand each other. And we need to make sure, I think, that we're all looking at the same thing to a certain extent, but from different angles. But we have a general understanding about, for instance, what sort of quality criteria are we looking for when we are talking about energy efficiency? How does that translate into value or financial risk? How the banks are then reporting these, but this needs to be a seamless, we need to have a common agreement. There needs to be a aligned, harmonized way how we collect the data, how we manage the data, how we report the data. I mean, the previous session was talking about was about the data, and it was about, the key conclusion was about we need an IT infrastructure. We need a very simple, a basic understanding about the data that we are collecting. And the key message here is that this shouldn't be rocket science. This should be very simple. This should be just common sense. And this is what I would expect probably from now, from the pilot phase, and at least in the early uptake, because this is the only way to make this a seamless process and reduce the administrative costs. What you were talking about before, just to reduce the chance of reinventing the wheel and just doing the same thing all over again.
Thank you. So can we move to the banking side?
All right. So I think I fully agree with what both of you said, as into the expectations for the pilot, and really to get to a lean process, to make things easy for a consumer, and also to have the leverage. I mean, 45% of the European market is represented here. So this means this gives us a lot of leverage to go collaborate with the governments, with the European, with the local governments, to really create this awareness, to really create a sense of urgency. And I think as a bank alone, you can never achieve that. And I think this is really, really important for me. Then what we can contribute is indeed to bring our local expertise, to bring our process expertise, and yeah, to help in making this happen.
This one. Yes, the first side of the question is with expectations. If I will need to cite one thing, only one thing, I would be falling from the horse like examples, is the need to, as I said before, to imagine among ourselves, among these different point of views, how to create something which is demand side attractive, and how we can involve policymakers in designing something which is really moving the market also from the demand side. So that would be my biggest expectation from the pilot phase. And what can we contribute as a small cooperative bank, which we are issuers of sustainable covered bonds, and we included buildings and energy efficiency in the framework. I think we could contribute in two ways. The first, on the IT, on the data collection, we are very much involved in tagging each and every mortgage in our bank. Being a small bank means that we can do this more or less manually, but then we face the troubles that bigger banks will probably face afterwards, and I think that would be a good thing to make concrete proposals. One of the proposals I have in mind is to follow the steps of the England and Wales, of the UK government. I think it was done in England and in Wales, of making public the EPCs. I think this is a great step forward. We get the EPCs in Spain from the regional governments, but we only get the postal address on an alphanumeric field. That means that we have to check this against our own alphanumeric field on the IT system. That is a nightmare. So we need a property registry without personal data, of course, but we need something like that. That on the IT system collection, I think we can bring forward some proposals. And then on the origination side, on the designing of the product side, one very particular thing of the Spanish market, and I think that can happen in other countries, is the relevance of the vertical construction compared to horizontal one. I mean, we tend to have lots of flats. I think it's the biggest market for elevators in Europe, if I'm not wrong. That means that in Spain, a lot of buildings are vertical. That tends to give, from a energy efficiency perspective, it's a good outcome, because these flats tend to be more energy efficient because of the skin of the building is lower per trodden square meter. But there is challenges, legal challenges, in the sense that making a renewal of such buildings means getting the agreement of, let's say, 50 families. And there is no legal responsibility for there's not legal personality of the housing community, and so there are some legal hurdles which could be envisaged. We are quite pioneers in financing renewal of buildings in our region, but we have identified several things which can be improved. And I think that renovation, Luca, is one of the biggest thing here. New houses are okay, but we are in an old continent with old people and old buildings, and we need renovation, and renovation comes with or needs the overcoming this kind of legal barriers, which I think at least in Spain exists. So this is the origin. To put it in a nutshell, both the IT system collection and the origination product, I think it's something we can have, or humbly can bring forward some ideas.
Of course, I would like to underline the potential in terms of growth. I mean, if the banks will be able to deliver this kind of amount of money, cash flow, entering and pumped into the economy, can you imagine how much research can be done for new technology, in materials, in labor investment of the companies? So one of the major problems of the construction business now is that they don't have labor forces able to cope with the demand. So this is an issue, and if all these banks will try to move this cash flow at the same time, again, is the revolution, and we can really do il miracolo europeo, like we can really reactivate the economy in a way that I think is in line with the scope of the European Commission, and hopefully also of all the European governments. So this is, I think, the potential. Before moving, I mean, Elizabeth already told us a bit what they can be doing, but before going to the next phase, I would like to ask you, what are your expectations? I mean, I see a lot of people, for example, people involved in the consortia, in the EDAP. I mean, just to reflect, if you want, I can give you 2 minutes, but I would like to activate a discussion with you and the audience to see what are your expectations. I mean, for example, I mean, Aeon, I mean, just to sense, what are your expectations as a company, I mean, from this group? I mean, I think never we had such a large group of bankers all dedicated to the same things. Let's be honest. I mean, what we are doing is something that was never the case in Europe. I mean, how you want to address? I mean, there is a thinking on what are the expectations for this group of people. And Marco, I don't know if you.
I mean, I think it's incumbent on all of us, whether we're an energy company or a bank or any other interested organisation, is really what I said in my speech. We've all got to figure out what is a product that is going to catch fire in the market, what is going to interest consumers. There's a huge prize out there. There's a huge amount of economic value at stake. But unlocking the consumer appetite is key. So we've all got to listen to what consumers are saying. We can bring our expertise to bear, what we know about customers and what we know about how they consume energy, your expertise to bear about what you know about customers, and hopefully put together a package which works. But I can't emphasize enough, if it doesn't work for the consumer, it doesn't matter how good it is for us, it's dead. So we've got to have that at the front of our mind, and the center and the back, getting a product that works as quickly as possible. And as soon as we can see that it works, the growth will happen, because it's compelling, the value that a consumer can unlock.
If I can maybe just briefly follow up. I think one of the things that always strikes me about this initiative is the more I look at it, the more building blocks I find. And you know, we've got an opportunity here to fill a treasure box full of tools, because you know, everyone in the room knows their own treasure that they can bring to the process, the thing that can enable further. You know, I don't know what there is in Miguel's world, or you know, I know a little bit about what's in Zolt's world. I think if we can take an opportunity between now and September, whilst we understand where our gaps are and where our problems are, to also document what we already have in our hands, you know, we're clearer on where our gaps are. And I think this is my expectation, my hope, is that we can find ourselves in September clearer on the knowns, clearer on the unknowns, and the unknown unknowns, you know, will just appear. because if we don't have a go, we'll never know.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Michael. Speaking about September and going to Venice, Monica, can I pull you in the sense that the big question mark is data. We have this kind of thing. The Commission is always asking us for data, whatever institution, and then when we ask what kind of data you need, silent. That's the issue. And the banks, of course, they are scared about the amount of data. What do you need? I mean, what is the cost of extracting data? The University of Ca' Foscari, apart from hosting us in Venice, which is a nice kind of element, giving this atmosphere of a trip school, you know. But I mean, they are working, trying to collect data that can help to build a proxy and to create a correlation. I don't know if, Monica, you can help us and also invite volunteers to share data with you and to see what you are doing.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Yes, I mean, our main aim is exactly to be able to not only, I mean, clearly the pilot phase will be, I mean, a way in which we can create and then at the end have the data, okay? But this will be, I mean, a medium trip. It is not for today or tomorrow. Then this asks us some time. And this asks some time since, I mean, if we want to correlate the energy efficiency level, let's say, on a improvement of the house with the probability to default, we need to see some default. We will not expect to see the default immediately tomorrow. I mean, we hope to see eventually this type of event later on. Then at the moment we are trying to collect, to put together different type of data. And the main point, and then the presentation this morning on the social impact of green finance, let's say something on Denmark, for example, is to be able to have the data crossed with the information on the mortgage on the energy efficiency level. I mean, all of you, I'm sure that when you create, I mean, give the loan, then you have the data on the energy efficiency level of the housing, but you do not collect this information, okay? Then it is on your, I mean, papers, but not on your system, and this is the problem. Then if some of you volunteer to recover the energy efficiency information from the papers in order to be able to analyze the data, this could be really helpful. Otherwise, we have to find other way, I mean, in which we can cross information on the energy efficiency, probably obtaining from some public register or something, okay? But after is the problem is to cross this information with the law data, okay? Since we also perform some analysis on European data warehouse data, okay, there is a lot of information regarding the people asking for the loan, but there is essentially nothing, since it's not required at the moment at the European level, at least for this type of data, I mean, for the structured product, I mean, in terms of energy efficiency. Then there is not this information. This is the main point in order to perform the analysis. Then any idea on this would be most than welcome.
Very brief on this. I think that there are two work streams on that. It's all mortgages and new mortgages. For new mortgages, what we are doing is we are working with the surveyors. We work in Spain because we, as a cooperative bank, the good thing is that we are 29 in Spain. So even though I work in one of these 29, we have the same IT system. And so what we are doing is asking surveyors not to give us the appraisal on a PDF, which is what we have now, but to also give us the fields, so that we can then work with the fields in the IT system. That would be for new mortgages. That's, I think, a great cooperation with them. So we are giving them a kind of interface in which, on top of giving us the PDF, which of course is official document with a seal and so on, then we'll get in the fields to feed our IT systems. And then for the old mortgages, this is another story. And then how you extract that from the PDFs, that's when I think the public sector can come and making public the EPCs of all mortgage or buildings so that we can match them with our mortgage book would make sense. Just two brief ideas on this.
So mean, over the summer, just to clarify, we will try to collect as much as possible data available into the market to build a proxy, and Ca' Foscari, together with SAFE, the University of Frankfurt, is working. So, I mean, banks can also provide something anonymously to them, and then they will work out. But we have also created other 3 levels of study. We have created a task force of few banks and few real estate companies in Italy that are trying to analyze the correlation between energy efficiency and value of the property. So they want to test this in the market like it is today, and also making an assumption of what will be in a different environment with more, I would say, green education into the market and how this will impact. The idea is that in Venice, we will have a presentation also of this, and the idea is to allow also other banks to share their views and their perspective, and to build around this kind of tiny Italian case a European case that can be used in parallel. And then on top of this, we have all the companies involved in the EDAP that are working and will be contacting the pilot phase banks to understand what kind of data they have, what is available, and things like this. So we are trying to tackle the problem from different angles and to find solutions. And I would like also to have I mean, we are here in UK, Tony, can I bother you just 2 seconds? I mean, it's a very successful story what you have done, so I cannot refrain from asking a question and to pull you in the discussion. But I mean, your bank, it was a bit a pioneer in this market and produced a new product. I don't know if you can tell us the strategic decision behind this. Why, if you can, I mean, why, I mean, you decided that was a deal to be done?
You reeled me in, didn't you? You had to reel me in. Yeah, I think it's been a journey for Barclays, and on a much broader sort of framework for Barclays, looking at sustainability isn't just a CSR issue. It's actually makes common sense that this is where business is going. You know, the world is changing, and we need to adapt to that change and help our corporate clients and our customers to adapt to that. So within that broader framework, you know, I work in the mortgage business, so I'm looking at how does that work in our area of the world. And you know, we were working with DEC, looking at energy efficiency. Can they release the EPC data? We were looking at green bonds, and it was a journey from that whole, you know, how could we look at our portfolio to see what was the energy efficiency of what did our portfolio look like? So it's a journey of exploration, really, and understanding, you know, what does it look like for us, and what opportunities does this present for us? So I think the green mortgage that we launched earlier this year was really off the back of that exploration. So I think, you know, leading on from what you were saying earlier, there are a lot of knowns and unknowns, and you know, we still haven't found all the answers, but we're finding our way forward with the green mortgage product. We're still in pilot on that, but you know, we hope to answer some of those questions and working with, you know, with other parties as well to understand that.
Thank you. During the pilot, I mean, we had also surprise when we asked who was involved in and Emilio, I want to pull you also in, because Emilio, I think it was a Friday night around 11, he sent me an email saying that the city of Madrid wanted to be part of the pilot. We had an exchange on WhatsApp with Jenny, saying, why not? I mean, that's a fantastic opportunity. And why a city wants to be part of the pilot? I mean, Emilio, I mean, can you explain? Because it's one of the animals that I was not expecting in the pilot. I could have, you know, system providers, a bank, valuers, but the city was a surprise for us.
Okay, they'll be happy to know that you've asked this question. The very quick answer is that they would like to make the best use of the money they have available. So they don't know whether that should go to subsidies or to guarantee operations, whatever, in what way. But they also need to have a procedure to analyze that. They've asked us to develop with them a way to assign more value to some things, you know, energy efficiency aspects and so on, and also aspects of sustainability. So, but basically is how can we make our money to be more efficient, actually. I'm very happy with this discussion here, because Those who are close to me in the Green Building Council world know that I always speak about people, and it's a long while since I say that until we reach all the citizens, we have nothing. This discussion here is an instrument. For me, money is but an instrument. In this case, it's many other things, of course, but the deep discussion is about what deep energy renovation of buildings is. We are in this discussion from, I'm personally in this since 1990. And that is when I did my first deep energy renovation as an architect in Spain. And it's interesting because the situation, socio-economic situation, was very different. They were the owners, the ones who were asking for the social housing they were inhabiting to be refurbished by the administration and so on. And they were angry and they were asking for that. But I was totally unsuccessful in my own collecting housing block for 8 years now. Actually, I've been dismissed 3 times as an architect trying to propose this with different, different presidents and stuff. But for me, this is already a 28-year course, actually. We speak about, and Miguel was very right, we speak about incentives, I mean, the carrot and the stick. So the stick would be higher taxes and the carrots would be incentives. But we are missing the key thing, which is what they call tambourines, which is, the way you wrap things. You really need to communicate something that is attractive. And that's it, basically. To my great dismay, this is not considered for instance, the Horizon 2020 call. There is not a space for proper communication. And this is a very severe problem because we go on with our discussion among technical people and we don't even know how to name the target of what we do, which is, we say the world out there, to refer to the final user or whatever. We are finally starting to be able to speak about the citizen, and that is we're improving in that, but they should be in the conversation. It is difficult, but right now, why? I mean, it's not a question. In Spain, for instance, I say that if you want to convince a community to do renovation, the first thing is that they don't need it, and this is the change between 1990 and now. They don't need it. Why should I do it? And the second thing, they are almost totally convinced that it is going to go wrong. Because they have experience of many things that have gone wrong because there is a construction and you're going to be asking money to do things and so on, and that money, even though you are awarded that money may not be received in the end, etc. Everybody has all these experiences. So we've come up to the point that it is a question of trust. And the way to communicate that to the citizen would be to actually see someone, now we live in a world that is very visual, see someone who are doing it and are solving the problems and finally they are successful. So that would be a success story, but that success story would probably take 18 months. So. But, sorry, you asked me something and I said many other things. But I wanted to share, my experience of 30 years in this field, precise field. And the last thing was build upon. With build upon, which was on this, we proposed from 13 countries recommendations to our governments and to the sector. So that could be a useful reading, I think, because it's there, but it includes very many things. So sorry about being too long. I have 2 questions for you, actually, but maybe this is not the time.
Okay. I mean, let's.
Okay, my question is.
I will prepare 2 potential speakers. I would like to raise a question to the insurance. I mean, looking at Roberta.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know if the SME can tell us what is their expectation and how they can contribute and be part of these things. So then I will conclude.
So maybe I'd better ask the question at the end.
No. Go ahead. I mean.
Okay. My question.
For me or for everyone?
I guess mostly for you.
Okay.
But you are close. No, it's about all the negative aspects of mortgages, actually, because it's they are seen. We've discussed this already. With a renovation intervention, you're probably speaking of 30,000 euro or something cost or investment. But why should you mortgage your whole home and so on? And it also has to do with something we've discussed in these days about whether the debt should be put on the property or the owner, and how well this is seen from European Union policies and so on. So because I think that is essential. So to say.
Well, I mean, I will try to answer with a little disclaimer. I work for the mortgage association, so I mean, of course, I defend this. Well, I mean, the real guarantee is a concept that always allow cash flow to be moved in a safe way and match actually demand of investment with offer of investment. So I think the moving the energy efficiency factor in the value of the property is exactly this is the purpose. It's giving security to the investors who is investing. Two examples. I love history, so I mean I have to. Mortgages, the word mortgages was coming from the hypothek, no? It was the way how the Greeks, they prepare a fleet against the Persians in few months. They had to make a huge investment to prepare their fleet for the Battle of Salamina that they won afterwards. And the money of the Oracle of Delphi was not enough to pay all this. Very, very practical problem. The Persians were arriving, how you build new technology, which was the boat. It is, you offer a technical guarantee on the property, okay, and it was the boat. So hypothek is coming from this. And this was the way, actually, if we speak about Europe, maybe it's also because the Greeks, they won that battle thanks to the mortgage. That's my favorite story. Another very story that I use normally to make my German friends happy. I have a lot of Germans in my federation, so I have to take care of them. Is that, I mean, the story of the Pfandbrief is actually coming from this problem. After the 7 Years' War, Friedrich the Great had the problem that the landscape of Prussia was completely devastated, and there was no way to attract actually investors. So he invented the Landschaft, which was the grandma of the Pfandbrief, where they were giving land as a guarantee to the investors. In most cases, the investors were Dutch, with a lot of money coming from Amsterdam. This kind of linking the property to a bond, another invention of the Dutch, was a way to reactivate the entire economy. So our idea is this. Let's factor the energy efficiency component on the most secure asset that we could have to win our Battle of Salamina and to bring a nice modern country like Friedrich the Great did. On my desk, there is a statue of Friedrich the Great. And so that's a bit, we can discuss about how the mortgage market has destroyed the world. I mean, this is something that I'm tested every day when I go to the parliament. I mean, we have to be practical. I mean, I had no money to buy my house. I had to decide between not giving a house to my kids or asking a mortgage, and I hope that the bank has provided me a good deal. And I'm continuing to move in this environment. So I think that we should try to go behind, openly speak about what is a mortgage, an hypothek. We don't have the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi will not take out the money, and we have to build our economy. And all these cases were very successful cases in the history. The Netherlands, Friedrich the Great, and Salamina. So that's it's a way to answer you, and I hope that about factoring in the most secure asset that we have, our house, is the way to boost a green economy behind this. I hope that was enough. There are two things that I want to let people understand, that we are not alone. It's not only bankers or carpet sellers like me, but I mean there are also insurance that actually can play a role in this. And I would like to ask Roberta. Roberta is following us. We met by mistake, I think, and she immediately believed in what I was saying. That was a mistake for you. But I mean, what are your expectations on this pilot phase?
Well, like an insurer, yes, we met by mistake where you were talking about remortgages and other people were talking about mortgages to young people. I was just thinking, they need a lot of money, and those people probably don't have enough money to afford what is the first house and renovation. So I'm a non-traditional insurer because we insure credit for banks. So my client are banks, financial institutions only. And what we cover is the default of the borrower. So if what is actually doing the European Investment Bank for SMEs is not so common for the retail markets because there is the hypothec, there is the lien. So has been considered always a safe business for the banks. But is safe because there is the asset behind. But because there is the asset behind, and probably the bank is giving money to those that are affordable, they don't take any further risk. So why banks are not transferring risk to the private insurance sector? So we have different balance sheets. We can diversify. I'm not talking about my personal company. We are talking about an insurance sector that can provide assistance to the banking sector, edging the fact that the banking sector is following Basel rules that are strict, that are capital constraints, while insurance sector is following solvency, that is a long-run balance sheet with numbers behind different. So our idea, first of all, has been to bridge the needs of the bank to originate up to a certain level of LTV. So what is important, because we don't know effectively the renovation, how can improve the value of the property. So it's a bet between the originator and the surveyors now, because anything has been tracked down. So we can support the bank to originate up to 95, 100% LTV, and bet together with the bank, providing a good borrower behind. That can be done in 1 year time, 2 years time, and the bank can discard the cover in 2 years time. But if they need, they can use the cover because it's an unfunded protection. So they can get capital relief out of there, securitizing the portfolios. So we are also in the funding, let's say, section of other side of the coin. But apart from that, insurance can support on technical things for who is doing the work. It's not my business, but I see a lot of opportunities to make this project fly because it's a social project, first of all. So, and I agree with Miguel that need to create demand for that because it's a social product. That's our perception.
Thank you very much. Can we move to the SME? Because I mean, someone has to do the works of a renovation, and it would be very nice to see the expectation of a different sector from us, maybe some fears, or what are the problems?
Thank you very much, Luca. So my name is Ann-Kathrin. I work for the European Builders Confederation, and we represent SMEs, well, especially actually just construction SMEs all around Europe. And I think one of the big hopes that we have, which is with this scheme, is, well, as Luca already said, one of our biggest problems is to attract young people to our sector. And energy efficiency renovations need a lot of different skills. It's way more skilled than just normal renovations, especially also just building as such. And I think there's a lot of ways on how we can attract young people to the sector with this. And also I think, especially to the banks, I think there's a lot of new developments in the construction sector in terms of digitalization, etc., building information modeling, which will also in fact be at one point a good evaluation for banks in the end of whether the work has been done well for the evaluator, for the people as such. So we believe there's a big chance in changing the market, in fact, in increasing the renovation rates of buildings and helping both, not just the consumers, but of course also us as an industry. And what we believe is really important is really the cooperation between everyone. So Luca nicely put us as the weak link yesterday during this nice theater that we played. But I don't think we have to be a weak link. I think it's a lot about cooperation, for example, on the national level with local authorities, also with associations of construction companies with whom you can engage a lot. And in fact, for example, develop a certain list of companies that are reliable, that do the work well. You can even make like an online scheme where certain banks can rate construction companies. I mean, this is already done in local projects and regions. Picardy region, for example, does this. So I think there's really a way, if we work together, to make sure that not the construction company is actually the weak link, but this actually works really well. And so we're really looking forward to this thing.
Thank you very much. I would like now, I don't know if there are any other points or any person that would like to take the floor. It's really an open debate. I mean, so maybe even.
Just to give some insight on why our organization, what we're looking to get out of this. I mean, we entered this. Oh, sorry, the Romania Green Building Council. We have a green mortgage program. We have about 10% market share and I would say, luckily, the premier builders, investors in the country have signed on. We have 2 banking groups that are offering banking product called a green mortgage. Why we joined, and I had questions in the beginning, but we were convinced that this initiative was setting the bar suitably high in that for the absolute performance of new construction and the relative performance of existing construction would be really what we'd consider a green mortgage. So my expectation, or my understanding now, and really my hope and expectation, is that we really maintain this idea that we have this opportunity with potentially 8-9 billion people on the planet, people consuming a lot more, really stormwater's ahead of us, that we fundamentally take this opportunity to fundamentally rethink how do we underwrite buildings, do we think of total cost of ownership. Just for some perspective, in Romania, we looked at, we like the Living Building Challenge, which uses the metaphor that a building should have the building performance of a flower, its impact on the planet. It's not a less bad building, it's not a building that's 10%, it's a building that collects its own energy, is non-toxic, local to the environment, et cetera. And we also looked at economic studies, and it's very clear that we could build at that level, which is the highest level of building performance, if we can engage banks and the miracle of mortgages to do that. And so in a sense, the banking industry can be the heroes of sustainability. And I think that's something I'd like to see.
Well, I mean, we are approaching 12:30, so we are very close to the lunch. I would like just to wrap up, and I think that it's pretty clear how you can contribute. I mean, but I'd like to conclude very briefly what you would like to see in Venice, and then I will make the conclusion of the things, I mean, for all of you.
Thank you. Yeah, in Venice, I think it would be great to see that Luca's vision of these working groups has materialized, and that that work has been done. He's obviously already said he's not going to pay you for it, so we're all counting on you to really to just do it for the belief in the initiative, and I think there are areas within those working groups that I think we can bring insight and support to. So I hope that across all those 7 areas we really start to get some tangible answers and questions that we can as a consortium and as a wider group can really sort of sink our teeth into and try and solve together.
Completely agree. I think yesterday or today actually we have presented the blueprints of what could be general framework for green mortgages, but so far this was more or less an academic undertaking. But I would really looking forward to the practical feedback that these 7 working groups will provide, so we can fine-tune, but also very importantly build the technical assistance and capacity on the local ground, and for that inside us as a professional body qualifying valuers, we will make sure that this is widely disseminated. They are aware of this, and they will have the right sort of skill sets if the banks tomorrow will start instructing valuers to follow our guidelines.
I think I completely agree with both of you. And what is also interesting for us, does it work? Yeah. What is also interesting for us is to see how other countries approach this. We've been working a lot in Belgium on the topic, and to see these 7 areas, how we can tackle them together across Europe, and see how we can make this as practical as possible, so that it will be a real success, I think, and attractive to the consumers again. I think this is really key. So yeah, that's my main expectations.
From my side, what I would like to suggest is, after doing an analytical procedure to assess group by group and constituency by constituency what can be done, and with very detailed, I would suggest to go to a synthetical approach and obtain a very clear definition, short definition of what has to be done, something which we as an EMAP can present to policymakers, stating what we think which is need to be done in order for this to work is 3-4 things. Of course, that after that we know that banks and the surveyors and the building sector will need to do lots of things, but I would suggest to go to a very synthetic proposal that can be understood, easily understood, and put forward to policymakers in order to make this project go forward.
Well, what I expect from Venice is to see all of you there, of course, and I think we are reaching the end of 2 days of marathon, at least for our staff. I think on behalf of the entire 2 consortia, we would like to thank you for your participation. We hope that we gave visibility to all of you, and we gave answers to your questions, because what is about to start, or today is officially started, is something important. We need your brain, your ideas, because ideas can enlighten the darkness, and unfortunately we need to put light in the darkness around us and give hope to people. And the hope to buy a house is the most important hope that you can have, to ensure a nice garden to your kids, in my case. It is the only thing that matters. And we are sitting in a very responsible place. If we are silent, if we are passive, we do only our job without having the head a bit above the fence. We lose our opportunity. And we cannot afford to lose this opportunity. So during the summer, we will be available. Please be aware that we will be sending an email to all the pilot phase organization explaining the list of the working groups, and ask people to take the lead or to participate in this working group is extremely important, because in Venice, we need to arrive with concrete 3 priorities per group. And this is extremely important, because then it will be my job to convince the advisory council to follow you. Then without these 3 priorities, I cannot make pressure on the advisory council and make sure that they will be following what you are doing. Let's make this happen all together. I think it's a fantastic group. I really trust all of you as a human person, because if you are here, it's because you fought with your bosses to be here and to get the approval. And let's do it together. Thank you very much. and enjoy Windsor.